All Eyes on Fishing with Mitch Peterson, Josh Sheldon, and Brad Qualley, leading you to the next level.
Everybody, welcome back to All Eyes on Fishing. Tonight we're going to be talking about line counter reels.
Trolling.
For trolling setups. We've talked a lot about trolling and using line counter reels and how important they are. But we've really never got into like brands that we use or that our friends use that are good out there. So we just want to make sure, because we've had some questions. Okay, I'm starting to look into getting some gear for the year. There's a billion of them out here. What do I get? Because they're not cheap. I mean,
no.
You're talking anywhere from $60 to $700. So you get the whole gamut. People are like, what in the world?
Right.
So to find something, the ones that we use predominantly around that $75 to $115 per reel. I mean, typically right there. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on. Some of the things that we have, some of the things we might upgrade to, or just get new ones, because we've had a couple of ours, Mitch, they're old.
Oh yeah, they have counted some lines.
They have counted some lines. So we want to shoot this podcast talking about what we're looking at right now. So Josh, what are you thinking about getting, or how do you want to start this off? What do you want to talk about? 3-4 different reels, or what do you talk about?
Yeah, I mean, let's. So in thinking about this, I've been looking recently at, and I recently bought four new reels. But I started to, the hardest part for me, and I've been kind of doing this over the last 3 years, right? So, I originally had those, Zepco Rhinos, line counter reels. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys remember those, but they're probably, 15.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, they're old, but they're built like tanks. The only problem is the line counter quit working a long time ago. And, that was and it's a mechanical line counter, and that's the one I used for my, lead core rods.
Sure.
But it had a nice deep spool, right? So I could put.
So it was like a size 30 maybe? Like you're talking about master size?
And I don't even, to compare it, I would say, probably 20 or 30, depending on what, how high it up. And as we talk about these, you'll see that that's kind of the problem. There is no standard sizing.
No.
Mm-hmm. And so I've been having a hard time. You can't really visualize, and it's hard sometimes when you look at the numbers, as far as like how much mono will fit and stuff like that, to guess how much lead core can fit, because that's the issue I was having. I would buy one and it would show up, and I was like, not big enough.
Too small. It's too small one.
But, I'm not going to send it back. Because why would you do something dumb like that, right?
That's how I burned myself on my very first line counter. I went down to the store and spent like $85 on a Daiwa C line.
Yeah.
And that baby was nice.
Yeah.
And
nice.
And it worked just fine for mono. I didn't even think twice about it.
Right.
And I got a smaller one, not thinking anything about it. And when it came time to spool up, hey, let's run some lead core, I got about 10 wraps with the lead core that filled it up. I was like, well, this sucks.
Yeah.
So that's the lesson I learned. When I'm looking at line counter reels, I'm going big.
Yeah.
Because what does it hurt?
Right. Well, and
as long as you're trying to mirror them, though, I mean, you don't want 4 different line counter rods.
No. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
No, and you want them all to be the same.
You do the same.
Sure.
So if you have a giant one that you could put lead core on, or if you're just doing mono, we'll just call them small, medium, and large, because they all have different characters of what they. So if you're looking at a medium one and it's going to hold, you're running a 10-pound mono on it, and let's say it holds 500 yards. Well, the large, you go buy X brand and it'll hold 300 yards. Well, that's a different gear. It's different. It ends up being different when you spool up because it hasn't filled that spool. So the key is replicating. If you want success, is replicating the ones that you have. So if you're going to get 2 or 4 or whatever, get the same ones.
Right.
And we've, I like the Depth Masters, right? The Cabela's Depth Masters. They have a little problem. I mean, they're more, that's on the inexpensive side.
Yep.
But the problem with them, and you guys know it, is the line counter. Yeah. The button, when you push it in, it gets hung up after you use a little bit. Which you can pull it up. You just have to remember to do that. Right. But so on the low end is that Depth Master, because the big ones, the 30s, the D30s are big enough to put 10 colors on.
Sure.
Right. With a little bit of backing, and then of course your lead.
Right.
But you try putting on that Daiwa, No.
Yeah.
No, you're going to get 3 or 4 colors on you. You'll be like, well, hopefully they're not.
Depending which Daiwa.
Well,
right?
the Daiwa that he has.
The small one. I think you have the 17 or the 27, I think.
It is small.
27.
And
the 47 is the big one, which is the one we'll talk about tonight.
Yes. And so, but the Daiwas are fantastic. Now, we bought 4 of those because we really liked it.
Right.
So we bought 4 of them.
Yep.
To run mono on because we can replicate it.
Right.
It's huge. So Akuma makes a good one. We can talk about Akuma Pen. Akuma. I mean Akuma.
Holy shit.
Dude, I've only had 4 beers.
Sure, well, hang on. You're going too fast because.
No, I'm just talking about the different ones we could talk about.
But what I was going to, as kind of the lead in is that, I was looking for one that could, like we were talking about, that could do both. And you have to remember, like you were saying, Brad, if you're going to buy a bigger one that can do either, right? Let's say I wanted all 8 of mine the same, right?
Sure.
4 lead core, 4 mono, but I want them all the same just in case one goes down.
Then you can put lead on
peel it off, and I know exactly what it is. Just remember, and this is what I do, and what everyone should do is you can take, your old line from the year before, right? Because you should change mono every year on your trolling rods. You can take the old line and use the line counter. If you're taking off one line counter and putting it on another, let's say, right? Like you're going to just switch out or whatever, but figure out a way to kind of put as much in. And since they have line counter on the reel, it's pretty easy, right? You can see exactly how much you reel up because they'll go backwards just like they go forward, right? So, you know how much backing you put on. So you make sure every year I go down to the same backing knot and I tie it at the same knot. That way I know the backing and how much mono I put on is the same.
You put 300 feet of backing, or whatever it is.
Yep, 300, 301, 302, whatever it ends up being. But for years that way, and who cares how crappy the backing line gets? It's just there to take up some space and
you could get down to the backing. It's usually on a snag, right? To where but you don't have a lot of pressure on it. You can turn around to go back. It's just something to stay on the reel while
you could, but I haven't. No,
we did that one time at Cherry Creek. We had 4 of them go, and we were out like 4 colors. And
you're doing lead core though.
Yeah, we were doing lead.
Mono. Yeah,
and then we got down to the backing. Yeah. By the time we got our last, we were getting down to the last one. But
4 snags.
4 snags.
4 snags.
We came across
that's a treat.
I think it was a cable.
Yeah, was it?
I was like, Jesus.
Yeah. So when I started looking, I started doing it. So what I have is the C line. The Daiwa C line size 47. It's, right now it's the, SG 47 LC3B, right? I don't know if mine are almost 20 years old. I don't know if that's what they, the numbers they used for them when I bought them, but when I bought mine, they were the best, right? They're a mechanical counter. And I am very superstitious about them. Like I am very hesitant to change because they have been great. They have been through all sorts of getting beat up and all sorts of weather, cold, snow, rain, whatever. It's hot sun, and they just continue to work great year after year after year, right? One of the best probably pieces of fishing equipment I've ever bought. So a few years ago, I don't know, probably 8 or 9, maybe 10 years ago, Daiwa got rid of the C line and they did the AccuDepth. So I have some AccuDepth and I did the same thing you did, Mitch. I bought a size 27 because it was kind of a little more compact. And I was going to do it for lead core, and I can get 6 colors on, and then I'm done. Right. Yeah. So it was
with no backing, with like 4 feet of backing.
Yeah. So it was a complete waste of money for both the lead core that I have now burnt and the reel that's too small that I use as a backup mono reel, basically.
Sure, and it's fine for that.
No, and it works great. Yeah, but the AccuDepths were kind of built different. I don't think they were as sturdy. I know they had some issues with them breaking. They had some issues with there being defective parts in the counters, stuff like that. So finally, I think after popular demand, Daiwa came back out with the 47s, the C lines. And, they look just like the old C lines, right? So I'm looking at it thinking, that's probably what I should do. The only problem is that, we are with the ambassador program with Berkeley and Abu. And so we get a discount on the Abu reels, and I like the Ultims, and I think they look like great reels, and they have this super advanced drag system. So I thought, okay. So I bought 4 of the Ultim 20s, which is their biggest one, to put on the line counter or the lead core. And
they're the digital counters.
And they are the digital counters, which I do have another ambassador for my bottom bouncers that's a digital that I was just trying out, which I happen to really like. It's not that big of a deal. I know some people don't, or they have issues with them going out or whatever, but I haven't had any issues. But so I got those, and I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking, what do I do now, right? Like, yes, I could put the lead core on there. No, it's not going to be accurate. Probably the counter because it is going to be a bigger diameter. I use the 18-pound lead core. So it is going to be different, right? But I don't care if it's different. I just want to know if
you want to be able to replicate it.
Yeah, I want to be able to replicate it. I want all 4 rods to be able to replicate. So I thought to myself, it does have this far more advanced drag system than the sea lines. So I'm thinking, okay, well, what if I put the lead core on the sea lines and the mono on the Ultims? So I think that's going to be my plan for this year. I think that's what I'm going to try to do.
Yeah.
Is I'm going to try to do the upgrade. And if it sucks, I'll switch halfway throughout the year. And if it's great and I like it, then we'll keep it
off and running.
Yeah, well, because it's 20 years different technology, right? So it's probably worth a try. But anyway, so to get back to what we were talking about, Brad, and like you were saying is, so in researching all these different reels that I was looking at to make sure they could fit the lead core, I started to look at different ones. And Brad, you came across with Randy, who we had on the show, with some of the pens and stuff like that. And man, there's a good selection out there now. It used to be just very limited. Now everybody's kind of sticking their toe in the water, So
in a relatively good price point too.
Yeah, they're all kind of evening out even. It used to be like the Shimanos are still way expensive, but the Shimano was like the Cadillac of line counter reels. They were so nice. They cranked so nice. They were so smooth. But, you had to get a second mortgage to buy 4 of them. And so I didn't even look at what the Shimanos are just because they are so expensive. But all the rest we're fairly close.
Well, this is their first line counter reel, isn't it?
I don't know if it's their first.
They've had them
made
for a little
so
bit.
many reels. They're big into the ocean.
Big
saltwater.
Right.
So they could have had other ones, but these definitely are freshwater. They say fresh and saltwater, but they're definitely more freshwater. Just like the
you can just tell by the way they're built.
Yeah, saltwater, but you can tell that they're more. And I tell you what, man, out of all of these, for the price and for the reputation that Penn has, I think Penn might actually be definitely worth a try. Especially,
I remember when Dave bought a friend of ours last year. The warranty, and I don't know what that is, but the warranty on Penn is phenomenal.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember what it was, but when he was looking into getting, because he was spending some cash, right? So he wanted and I can't remember which one he got, something that we wouldn't use because it is a saltwater rod. Right. It's a $600 reel.
Yeah.
But just looking at Penn, their customer service when he was dealing with them, he really liked that. And it's not saying the other ones don't have it. I know Penn's a quality brand. So what Randy's looking at and what, I've kind of caught interest in is a couple, the Warfare, the Penn.
Yep.
And then even if you want to step down from that, if you're trying to buy 4 or 6 of them, the Rivals, it's got a pretty good rating. I haven't ran those, but when you're looking at the specs on those, very good. I think that they're both a little bit faster with their gear ratio. Most of them are on that 5.11. From 4.2 to 5.11. Most of these gear ratios you're going to find in all these line counter reels.
Yep.
So if you want one that's a little bit faster, of course, you're going to want a higher number, the 5.11. For what that means is that 5 is going to go 5 revolutions on the spool for every 1 turn you make with the crank.
Right.
Your cranking handle.
Yep.
So that's so 4.2 would be 4.5 revolutions with 1 turn.
Right.
4.4, you know what I mean? And vice versa. Some people have asked us before, what's the gear ratio mean? It's the speed of retrieve, right?
Right.
So different, not as important, I don't think, that gear ratio when you're doing trolling.
Yeah,
because when you're calling casting with spinning rods, it's different because it's just the amount of how fast you have to reel.
Sure,
bass guys are huge into that. But if guys are looking at buying them, as long as they're in that 4. Mid-4s or up around that 5, that's pretty standard. You're going to be fine with that speed ratio.
Sure. Yeah, well, in looking at the Akuma cold water line counters, which my tournament partner just bought 4 of, which he says he really likes. They have the different ones, and they go all the way from that 5.1 to 4.2, which is their gear ratio. The Daiwas are 4.2. And that's for the 47. I didn't research the smaller ones just because I had no interest in the smaller ones. The Ultims from Abu, the DLCs for the smaller ones are 5.1, and for the 20, which is the size I got, is 4.7. So, So it's pretty close to the same even for the big one. And then for the Pen Warfare, it was 5.1. So, I mean, all of them seem to be fairly close to the same.
Yeah. Something that we don't even really pay attention when we're buying.
Right.
I mean, I know you did the research on them to have that so you could talk about it, but we all know it's going to be that mid-4s, maybe the low, up to around that 5.
Sure.
Just because that's how they build them.
Sure. And I wanted to look at the Depth Master from Cabela's just because I know that they worked to improve the line counter, so I know that they knew that was an issue, and they have since supposedly fixed them.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see, because for the price, you're right. I mean, but I do know that the nicer Depth Masters are starting to get comparable to these as far as price.
Well,
they're no longer the
even
the
so
knockoffs.
Getting into the Depth Master, me and Mitch, what do we have, like 8, 10 of them? 10 of them, and they all started out as our mono trolling rods, right? And because we got the 30s, the bigger ones, now there are predominantly, they all are lead reels.
Yep.
Every one of them. And then we have a bag up in the front of the boat that has 3 spares.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? Because they're all the same. They're ready to go. Because lead can be tricky. You're out running lead and everything's hunky-dory. And next thing you know, Jed's a millionaire and you struck gold. No, you didn't. You got oil and everything's jacked up and it's messy and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah. Having an extra either full rod and reel setup or just the reels set up, especially with like a lead core and a mono trolling reels, is not a bad idea.
Yeah, we don't have the rods just because you end up running out of room in the boat. But we do have the reels.
Yep.
Ready to go.
And if you, especially with the lead core, I mean, you get a bad snag and all of a sudden you're pulling on it and it snaps 2.5 colors in. Now you have every other rod's got 10 colors and one rod's got 7.5.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, so what if you're running 6.5, 7 colors? Now talk about getting into backing and you have issues with, if you do get a big fish, you gotta hope it doesn't take off or another snag. Now you're really in big trouble. So I usually try to keep, if I don't put it on the boat, I have it in, in the hotel room or in the truck, to where I can go get it real quick if I need to kind of thing. But I think the big thing too is when you start to look at these, so we compared 4 just to keep it, on the sake of time. The Akuma Cold Water line counter, the Daiwa SG47, the Abu Ambassador Altum DLC, and then the Pen Warfare, all of which are right around that 109. The Pen Warfare is around $80. The Akuma's 109, the Daiwa's 109, and the Abu's 129. So that's what you're going to get for price. So you're going to, the
129 for the Abu is probably because it's digital.
It's digital.
It's digital.
Yeah. It's got a little more. What? And that drag system is a little more advanced than the other ones.
Yeah. I mean,
so
not to say the other ones have a bad drag system.
No. It's just it is very smooth. If you've never messed with one of those Ultims, they're very smooth drag systems.
The one thing that always gets me is just keep this in mind, guys that are looking to buy them. And I know you have them. We've stayed away from digital because of the experience you had with this a couple years ago. And some of the problems that some of the folks had early on with the digital, when it was cold, they weren't working. They wouldn't turn on. So I'm like, well, a lot of times we fish is pretty damn cold. Yeah. I don't want that issue. I want to be able to fish. What do you do for the digital line count? If you have a digital one and it's cold and it malfunctions, the battery runs out, what do you do?
I don't know. That's the problem. It's like you have to, you maybe have to give them a little more love than you would the other ones. Maybe you have a spare battery or two in the glove box of the boat or something.
It's just something I want to make sure people are thinking.
I have never had the digital fail on me. Not once.
You did at the very beginning. You said it wasn't turning on.
I just had a bad one, period. I mean, it never came on. It didn't go out because of the cold. It just. Well,
I remember then you started researching and looking at it, and the early ones
and
said
that was the biggest complaint.
It was the cold.
Yep, it was the cold. In the cold, it would have issues with the. But I have fished in the snow with these and. Like I said, I have the one digital. I wanted to try it out just to see.
Oh no! When you got it, we were both like, "Ooh, that's pretty cool."
Yeah, that's nice.
And then it didn't turn on.
Wouldn't turn on.
And then we started reading reviews. We're like, "Glad I didn't buy that digital."
Yeah.
Sucker.
So I mean, and that's where I'm. I'm hesitant, right? That's where I'm hesitant to go away from.
If you're going to drop $130,
dude, well, these Daiwas are, I mean,
but they are sweet.
The Daiwas are so solid and have had them for so long, and I've caught so many fish on them that I'm almost like, but
well, our sea lines
worth a try.
Are awesome.
Yeah.
Our Daiwa sea lines, we got 4 of them that we run all the time.
So, but what I was going to say about, line depth, how much line you have is if you do you look at the line, and that was kind of the biggest thing for me, right? So when you look at selling point, you're looking at size, because the Akuma has a 15 or 153 or 15D, 203D, 303D, 453.
Those are the model sizes.
Those are the model sizes, right? So they have a whole bunch, for big, little, whatever. And then the Daiwa has the 27, the 47. I think the 47 is the biggest. Abu's got the 12, 16, and 20. And the Warfare was a 15 and a 20. And then if you go to the other one, they had a 30 as well. So I'm looking at all these and thinking, I mean, that's the part that was confusing to me. I was ready to lose my mind because you just can't tell, right? So you'll start looking at what they fit for line.
That's how you did small, medium, large. That's about
all you can really kind of figure
small,
out. Small,
medium, large.
Yeah.
So compare what they're going to run with mono.
0.35 mono as far as diameter goes, and pound test is 10-pound test.
0.35.
Yep, 0.35. 0.35 for the Akumas is 270 yards and that's for the 20, right? And 30 is a little bit more, and of course the 45s are a lot more. For the Daiwa, the 47 and now they don't give you what it is for 10-pound. They give you 14-pound. It's 480 yards. So that's a lot, right?
That's a small
reel
for 14 pound.
Yeah. Yep. So I would guess the Akuma's probably fairly close to that for their big ones. For the Abu, for 15 pounds, it was $495. So that's even a little bit bigger still. The interesting part about the Ultim is a little bit wider. So it doesn't look as deep as the Daiwa. And then the Pen, which also looks a little bit more like the Daiwa, it's a little bit,
a little wider profile.
Yeah, a little more compact. For its 20, 15-pound does 3, hang on. Okay. For the 15-pound does 320 yards. And for the 20-pound test is 315 yards.
Yeah. So if
you can imagine it's going to be 4 something probably.
Yeah. So if you're getting confused out there, that's what we're trying to get. It's confusing for us, and we own a bunch of them. So what I think we're trying to get is small, medium, large. What's your application? If you're going lead core, look and see what's going to have higher mono ratio, because it's going to be able to put more lead on. If you never run lead, and you're not going to, you can get away with one of the mediums or smalls, right? I mean, you can. It's a matter of space in your gunnels or in your rod lockers, or whatever you have, because when they're big, they're big.
Yep.
Right? So you just, whatever your application is the key is to go compare what the mono size is, because then you can relate it in your own head, what size that's going to be to get into lead if you choose to pull it.
So real quick before we go, they are coming out now with low profile, basically looks like a bait caster with a line counter on it, right? Those would be amazing for bottom bouncing, right? Like I bought this whole bottom bouncing setup, right, with the smaller ambassadors, mechanical line counter. It was great, right? They're perfect for it. But I was using bait casters prior to that because of the low profile and they're easy to store and stuff. Of course, as soon as I buy them, they come out with these with the digital.
Yeah.
Those are not, and I have seen people use them on TV in head-to-head tournaments. Those are not designed for running planer boards and the big. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is not those big open water trolling setups. Those are a much smaller setup. That reel is much smaller, not designed for that. Can you do it? Probably, but first off, you can't get as much line on there.
Well, it's like you could probably tow my boat with my Wrangler, but it doesn't work. I mean, you can probably do it. I tried it; it don't work that well. You know what I mean?
You can launch.
You just can't get out of water. So yes, that's just to get a mental picture. You could probably do it. There's probably going to be some limitations.
Yeah. So just when you're going on and you're looking at them and you see that and you think, oh wow, look at this. You just remember what those are more designed for. That's more of a bottom bouncing app. something like that. Something where you're going to use a lower profile. You're going to have less line on. You're not going to have to
even long lining out of the back.
Yeah, I mean,
not on a planer board where you put all that extra pressure.
That's a little more beefier setup especially when you're doing planer boards.
Well, just go big. That's my rule. If I'm
the pens are real big though, so you got to kind of watch it.
Yeah, you got so much rod storage, but go big, big. No, so hey guys, we do appreciate you listening to All Eyes on Fishing in our podcast. If you have questions on this, I know it kind of gets confusing, but this came from a listener because they wanted to know what they should start looking at, and so we started putting some things down on what we wanted to talk about. Follow us at alleyesonfishing.com, but also if you have those questions, like the listener did on here, send a question to alleyesonfishing@gmail.com. Make sure you're checking out our apparel on our website, and let's just keep this rolling. Subscribe to the next level, and let your friends know. So from everybody at All Eyes on Fishing, thanks.
This has been All Eyes on Fishing. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe to The Next Level. And you can hear longer podcasts and more information on all of your favorite topics. And check us out at alleyesonfishing.com for apparel, blogs, and other information. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. All Eyes on Fishing, leading you to the next level.